VGC is supported by Patreon. Check out patreon.com/videogameschronicle for more podcasts, ad-free browsing, and extra content. Thank you for your support. I'm going to give you what you need. It's VGC, the video game podcast, with me, Jordan Midler, Andy Robinson, and Chris Dring. This week, we know a little bit more about who's making Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Tony Hawk is back. But first, how's it going, folks? Chris Dring, do you just live here now? Do you live in this Riverside studio whenever we need a podcast guest?
I'm starting to feel like I always joke I'm like the whatever the fifth Beatle is, or I think that's just true, isn't it?
I mean, you say much worse things than us every time you come on this podcast, so I think we're your follow-up act, if anything.
You're like the Pablo Fornals super sub.
Yeah.
We bring on.
I think I have to watch myself. I've been stung this week.
You don't say.
Did you see Dringo was trending on Twitter at one point?
Yeah. I don't really see those messages because when us fanboys start entering a feed, I immediately mute. But that was it was a weird.
As soon as they start responding to your lies.
That was a start. That was a learning experience for me, where you have a sort of relatively casual conversation with someone on Twitter, and you think, "Oh, hang on, it's a public conversation, really," and make sure you know what you're talking about.
So, would you like to issue an official apology to gamers right now?
Well, the thing is, it's a bit of a complicated. So, this is back in December 2023. It was around that time when I was on Games Industry.biz. One of our writers, Rob Fahey, wrote an article about Xbox, and in it was nothing really to do with Game Pass, but in it he wrote a line about Game Pass being a money pit or something like that. And I got a note from Xbox going, we've said it's profitable. And I'm not the editor of the site, so I never saw the article before it went up. So I was the publisher, but I looked at the article, I mentioned it to the writer, I said, actually, just take it out, I don't really care. So he took it out, and then I said then I just went to Xbox afterwards and went, just out of interest, because here's the thing, with when people say this is profitable or this is the budget, I'm like, well, what's actually included in that budget and what isn't included, and what's actually in when you say Game Pass is profitable, what's included? And they gave me some of the stuff, and I said, is any of your first party costs included in that, the actual cost of making your internal games? And they went, no, why would it be? And because they make their money from other means. And I went, well, that's interesting. So for about the last 18 months, I've been saying that the first party costs aren't included in that Game Pass number, mainly to talk about the fact that studios have had their margins reduced. Some of them might even be unprofitable, I don't know, but they certainly have reduced profits. And so that means launching on PS5 is a good thing, blah, blah, blah. And then for some reason, I entered someone else's conversation and I said that they were talking about Game Pass being profitable. And I said, well, it's worth noting first party costs aren't included. So I don't actually know if maybe it isn't in real terms, depending on how you count things. Shouldn't really have said that. And I went to sleep, woke up to a text from Jeff Keighley going, "You're trending." And then I also messaged from Xbox and some other people. And it's where it turned out that actually that Game Pass is profitable line. They do factor in lost sales, and not the costs of the games, but potential lost sales into that thing. So I had to sort of
it still doesn't really change what you said, though, does it? It's all lots of accountancy shuffling. It's still not clear whether it's actually profitable. I mean, like a lot of the responses that I've seen from, shall we say, more notable people, just sort of like point out that, well, Nintendo and Microsoft account for these costs in this department and that, and it doesn't really matter. They're just shuffling it around so that all the graphs look good, right? The actual matter of what we're talking about is that is it as a model, profitable? I don't really see. Well, and
it is a thing. They say it is, so it is, right? But I mean, I was just, and I
believe they're
probably making that.
They say a lot of things. But they also said that they really loved Hi-Fi Rush.
but we
Everwild's
coming along great.
With that whole thing, I just sort of regret randomly speculating. I think it's not something I'd like to do, and I sort of did that. And but what's interesting, if there's going to be a positive, people have started to go, oh, actually, what does those sentences actually mean? And I don't just mean in a cynical way. So, that leak, was it $300 million or whatever Spider-Man 2 costs? I spoke to somebody who used to work at Sony, and he said, what's included in that $300 million? Because did Insomniac deck out a new motion capture studio for the whole thing? And did they put that underneath the Spider-Man 2 budget? What is actually, did they, do some things for Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man at the same time and suck it under the Spider-Man budget? What is that kind of thing? And when you start getting into those weeds, you realize it's all a bit meaningless. But Game Pass is profitable, and that's all I need to say on the matter.
Excellent. Speaking of profitable, Andy Robinson's here. Andy, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, I think. What's happened this week? Yeah. What have I been doing?
Me and you have been hanging out.
Yeah.
It's just been
the
two of
hot,
us.
Isn't it?
It's getting, so it wasn't terribly hot in Scotland this week, but this weekend is today's 28, tomorrow's 29. So I will be reduced to a pile of ashes.
I'll tell you, one of life's small joys. My local pub has been closed for a refurb for 2 weeks and opens up today. So you can go there and go check out. Look at the new toilets. The bar's nice.
I'm surprised you're not camping. You're outside for 3 weeks, it's Billie Eilish. Yeah, I think I'm going to go around to my mum and dad's. They have a paddling pool that is ostensibly for dogs, but I will stick my feet in that and be quite happy and drink between 20 and 30 ciders and just enjoy my weekend. Wake up sometime next Wednesday. This week we have a lot going on. This is your second podcast of the day. If you've not noticed, check your podcast feeds or go on YouTube. We have a very special podcast with the one and only Bam Margera. How this happened, who can say? Maybe it's because we've spent the last 6 months turning the website into a campaign to get him in the game, but he's here. He's chatting about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, Tony Hawk's Underground remakes, and his recovery in life so far, crediting a lot of it to his wife, who is a stretch coach. Andy, I don't know about you, but after he talked about that, I was like, maybe as someone who sits on a chair,
maybe I should maybe I should go and find a stretch coach. What is a stretch coach?
So I looked on his Instagram. She basically just forces his muscles and his legs and stuff beyond what a human can do. So she she's like Pilates, yoga, that kind of thing. So I think it all goes under that.
I thought it was just a long bus.
Thanks, folks. Patreon.com/VeroGamesChronicle. We'll see you next week. Hopefully Scully will be back by then.
He's going to upgrade to a bendy bus soon, yeah.
Before we get into it, we will be talking about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 since the expert is here. Shout out to our season ticket holders on patreon.com/VeroGamesChronicle. Vicious, Tanner Santo, Serkin Toto, Shay Dougal, Matt Huggins, Martimus Prime, Ryan Cabane, Sam Biggs, Ginger Jolton, and Mark Edmonds. Topic number 1, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 is out. Dringo, as someone who was very excited about this game, I even gave you a Tony Hawk's 3+4 memory card signed by Tony Hawk, which we were very excited about.
Actually signed by him.
Yeah, he was. Andy was there. He came into the suite at SGF, did the 900, signed it, and fucked off.
He just grinded across our sofa.
That's where all the cans went. What are you playing on? How much have you played, and what are you thinking about it?
I've made a site faux pas. So it's great. But because I've got Game Pass, and I knew I was, I'll just get
the famously profitable Game Pass.
Yes, the profitable Game Pass. Trying to be sincere. I'm not trying to look sincere. I am being sincere. I decided for some reason to buy the early access on Switch 2, which I think was a mistake. Well, I thought it was a mistake because I'm holding a Switch 2 and playing a game that requires that kind of. Your hands do hurt quite quickly. And it was someone who pointed out to me, he said, I can't use a Pro controller. I thought, yeah, I should probably do that. I'm like, it's such a Tony Hawk's just such a Moorish game, and I find myself I'm already through Tony Hawk's 3, so I'm like, which is quite good for me. I'm sort of.
Are you getting everything? Are you doing like every single goal and then doing the next level, or are you just?
Yeah, that's how I do it. I've got to rinse it really. Unless there's the plane on one of the levels. You had to jump at the right time of the plane. I waited till I had a bit more stats points.
Yeah.
But generally, I try and do everything. Find the secret board, the Iron Galaxy logo. I wish getting this every year. That's the thing for me. These games are quite quick, really. You can smash through them really fast. I know they've got New Game Pluses, and you've got multiplayer and all sorts of things. And I just like the idea of just having this experience every year rather than every generation, which seems to be the current model.
I was having the exact same feeling. Like I've got all the normal goals on both games, and now I've unlocked the pro goals, and I'm working my way through them. They're like pretty like difficult, so I've got like 25 hours on the PS5 version at this point. Like I can't stop playing it. But like you, I had the same feeling with Astrobot after I finished it in like a day and then platinumed it the day later. I was like, when's the next time I'm going to have new Astro to play? It turned out quite quickly, but like I wish this kind of thing was with more regularity. And obviously because it's 3 and 4 and it's these games we've played a million times, it's much easier to fly through once you know.
Oh yeah,
like, it's total muscle memory at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, when I got 1+2, the remakes of those, it took me a little while to do it the first time around. I think I remember it being that way, and then I bought then I paid the PS5 upgrade, and I think I finished it in like half a day.
Yeah,
and then I got the Switch One version, and I did the same thing. But it's a beautiful game. It's a wonderful game.
And did you think if this is a success, it motivates them to do like a smaller release more regularly? Because it can't cost an absolute bomb to make like 8 new Tony Hawk levels every couple of years.
I mean, who knows, right? I mean, the whole thing feels like a bit of a contradiction that the game is made. I mean, this game was not getting made, right? Activision, after the last one, obviously got sold to Microsoft. The developer went as well. It really feels like Tony Hawk is like, especially we put up a great feature by Matt Ombler on the site this week, where he speaks to a lot of the bands who, kind of have come back to the series and new bands that are, newcomers to the series and what it means, how it's, kind of influenced their careers and stuff like that. And a lot of them reference Tony Hawk and how like, he's like very, he's not just a name on the box, he's very involved in getting these bands on and, what he thinks the soundtrack should be. Like, I think we should be lots of new bands this time and help, kind of younger players discover new music. It really does feel like he's a force, right? Like, it feels like this game got made through sheer will of Tony Hawk, right? Find a new developer and, we'll get this over and we'll get it made. So who knows?
I'd love to talk to Iron Galaxy about it because, the first game. Here's the thing: it's to people like me and Jordan, right? I don't think the market has much growth potential in it. I think it speaks to people who love this game, and that audience is loyal but small. But the truth is, they did all the hard work of getting it feeling good and running well on the 1+2. And I've got to the point where just either give us DLC or just a new game every year, built on that. You just need to. It's just content now. It's just the levels. It's just the characters and maybe a bit of iteration here and tweaks here and there. You could probably do that with a relatively small group of people, making it relatively quickly, built on the technology you've already put together. And here's the thing: like we buy it every year.
without question. The greatest thing I can say about Iron Galaxy's contribution is they've made 3 new levels for this package, and if you didn't know which were the new levels, you couldn't tell. Like, they fit so seamlessly into the already established like Tony Hawk level design ethos. They are exactly the team that should make the next Pro Skater game. I released a feature around SGF saying they should just make Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 and wipe that last Pro Skater 5 from history.
I literally, until I read that feature, I didn't know there was a Tony Hawk's 5.
Yeah, there wasn't.
There's
only been 3 Indiana Jones movies. And there's only been 4 Tony Hawk's games. Well, 4 Pro Skater games.
I know people would love an Underground remake, but making an Underground remake is a significantly bigger undertaking because there was so much voice acting in that. Like, it's a totally different like game engine style, like the more open world stuff. Just give us new Pro Skater games every 2 or 3 years, and I'd be super happy about it.
I'll subscribe to something and get a new level every 3 months, whatever. Right? It's,
genuinely.
But I think but maybe they've gone down the route of, but like Nintendo with its franchises, that ultimately they only need to give us one a generation, and that'll be enough. But I hope for more.
Me too. I thought that it was nice that they included all the tapes that you can unlock via doing the challenges that have like footage of the actual skaters skating, and I unlocked the Margera one the other day. and it's hilarious because all of the old footage is totally blurred out because they don't have like any of the licenses from his like original Element stuff. There's tons of graffiti that they had to blur out, so it's like he's just floating through this like world of glaucoma with like a tiny skateboard underneath him. But it's it's magic. I'm so happy with it, and the soundtrack's great. I highly recommend going to read that Matt Ombler thing because it's just so funny that VGC this week has a Bam Margera interview, quotes from CKY. Like, we are the most early 2000s website on earth, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Should we start wearing like big baggy jeans and chain wallets again? Like, I think that's
it needs a chain wallet with like a proper roach logo on it or something.
Exactly.
This is the time though. Those early noughties is the nostalgia moment it's having. And so it's I went to the Black Sabbath gig, which literally is bands earlier than that at the weekend, and then Linkin Park the week before. I'm properly living my
Christ.
How
was
the Black Sabbath thing?
I had astonishing tickets. The person who got me tickets. I was in this weird. This has never happened. This is not
Jim
normal,
Ryan.
by the way. I had 4 Michelins. I had 4 Michelin star chefs cooking for me, and the people I was with all day. We had tickets that got us. We had our seats, but we also could stand beside the stage and watch the band from the side of the stage. Free bar all day. I couldn't. I said to him, "How much does this cost you?" And he went, "You don't want to know."
How good is the games business doing that Jeff is able to pay for all of this stuff?
This was a friend who got me tickets. It had nothing to do with me. I did not pay for it, and it was I had a great time. But it was, for me, I tend to be. You'd be surprised. I think people will be surprised if they just know this. I'm someone who gets down the front at gigs. I'm the guy in the mosh pit normally. This was not that experience, but
so many of our listeners don't know that they may have been punched in the back of the head from Chris.
Well, I know. I'm not a buyer. I just like to run around and dance. I went to the Linkin Park gig, and Jeff Keighley went to the Linkin Park gig, and I said, "Oh, where are you?" And he went, "I'm in the Royal Box."
Dring goes down the front with a cup full of piss, ready to go. Like.
Where was it?
Linkin Park. It was at Wembley Stadium.
Oh, okay. That's such a crap place to watch. Sorry, Jeff. That's a crap place to watch a gig from. Royal Box. You're not watching the FA Cup final. Like, the stage is over there, and you're a million miles away.
The Black Sabbath gig was at Villa Park.
Yeah. And then Iron Maiden was playing West Ham. It was all kicking off. The other night in Glasgow, Kendrick Lamar was playing in Hampden. Billie Eilish was playing at the Hydro, which is like our big stadium, and Kneecap were playing in a random place in the middle, and it was like just World War Z in the middle of Glasgow, trying to get home from any of that.
Well, so I'm going to get back from Linkin Park with Iron Maiden also kicking out at it was there's a lot of fellow, but it's interesting because it was nice but busy.
I was going to talk about the gig going experience, but after you were talking about standing at the side of the stage, perhaps it's not the time for anecdotes about how difficult it is to get in and out of gigs at the moment, because it's a total pain. And before we go for a break, we have another story to chat about. Story number 2. Romero Games, the studio founded by John and Brenda Romero, was thrust into the spotlight this week following the Microsoft cuts. However, it is denied that it's closing its doors. An employee claimed last week that the whole studio was being let go as a result of a pooled publishing deal, which Romero hasn't confirmed was Microsoft, but has inferred it. However, a statement has now been released saying, "We want to address recent reports regarding the status of Romero Games. These reports have contained inaccuracies, and we feel it's important to set the record straight. The funding for our project was pulled and the game was cancelled. Due to confidentiality agreements, we cannot disclose the publisher's identity, though some may infer it from public information. As a result, we have to reassess the entire staffing of our studio." Dringo, is this an easy win for another publisher to come in and finish this off and put it out themselves?
It depends on what the game is, I think. It's probably been part funded, and clearly Romero Games don't have the ability to. There's another publisher that I know that lost its publishing deal. I don't think it's related to the Microsoft stuff, but in recent weeks as well, and they actually had enough funding to be able to just take the game back and say, okay, we will now take out the links to the IP and then we can build it ourselves. But yes, possibly. I mean, what's happened here is Romero Games, obviously, they've lost their money, they've lost their income, they've got this team they need to pay, and they've put them on because of Irish and EU rules, they have to put them on consultation. So put them on consultation because I imagine they've got 2 or 3 months worth of money, and so they don't want to go bankrupt. So they put their staff on notice, and hopefully in that 2-3 months they'll find another publisher. But yeah, there's not a lot of money knocking about, but Romero's like a big name, and I always found really fascinating was I was writing about Doom recently, and those Doom games that he made, those sort of Doom rip-offs. Well, not rip-offs, they're his games. The Signal game, I think they're called Signal 1 and Signal 2. That they're in the Doom collections, like Bethesda's done.
That's great.
And actually incorporated them into the collection of Doom. So it's like they're not official Doom games, but they now are.
And do you know what? Not a lot of people are talking about how this would have been I'm guessing it because this has kind of come out of nowhere for me, without context. So I'm sat there thinking it would have been an awesome surprise, right? Bethesda are like, here's a new shooter from John Romero.
Yeah,
we're working. The guys who make Doom, are working with the guy who made Doom.
Would have been nice. Yeah. Like it would have been a nice feel-good moment. Like even bringing him out and being like, here he fucking is.
No, just Christ's sake. I mean, to Jordan's point, Jordan's point, Dringo's point. That's a big difference here. Is if it was in America, then you get the layoff news a lot quicker, right? Because they can just lay them off, but you can't do that in.
Or they wouldn't have laid them off at all. They'd have spent 2 or 3 months trying to find a publisher. And
so there's a key difference in the employment law. Yeah, and I think another point of this that doesn't get talked about is these are the guys who are suffering in silence, right? I mean, the Romero thing's become a story, but there are so many like support studios and stuff who are working on a lot of these projects who have been like left out of pocket by Microsoft closing the studios or cancelling the projects. Like Sumo was working on a couple, right? I think Sumo was working on both Rare games. I think.
I know that they were working on I heard they're working on Perfect Dark, Crystal Dynamics, but it's not even just them. It's the wider ecosystem, like recruiters who had contracts with these studios, agencies, the QA companies. Like it does go deeper. Insurance firms, right? All of these people are hit when something like this happens.
Someone please think of the insurance firms.
But they're all gaming specialists. I don't mean like big insurers. There's insurers that are purely built around video games people who've set up insurance companies who deal with insurance needs for games companies, and there are all sorts of different legal firms that are built around this sort of thing as well. So there's this. I mean, they're having a field day when shit like this happens. But it does have like a wider. I was at Develop Brighton this week, and the mood was so down. And don't get me wrong, it's always little glum in the industry at the moment. But on the back of, because the UK has been particularly hit, obviously because of Rare, and Microsoft and all of Bethesda, sort of UK and Europe have gone, right? So it's all of that, and that they're based in the UK. So there's just a lot of, it just for everyone was feeling it, I think, and. But what you're saying about Romero Games is, what's worth noting is why did they cancel the game? Did they cancel the game because it no longer fits with their strategy, because they cancelled another game that it was connected to, or did they cancel it because actually it's not in good shape and they don't think it's
like you said last week on the pod, they bought these publishers and they've got so many bloody genres overstacked now, right? RPGs and shooters. If there's any game they do not need, it's, with all the will in the world, like John Romero, they said there's like 100 people there or whatever. It's going to be an indie shooter, right? That's
like boomer shooter.
They do not. I mean, they own Doom for a start, which has just come out and it seems to have been pretty lukewarm.
Yeah. It's a blow to the just my neck of the woods. It's actually a blow to the Irish games industry. Romero Games is one of the sort of hero.
Yeah, I hear people talk about it quite a lot.
And that studio, the Northern Light, is slightly different, but the studio that was closed a couple of weeks ago was also another, which has nothing to do with Microsoft, but that was also another in that part of the world. So it's been it's been a bad sort of period of time for that territory.
Yeah, we're just kind of getting out of we're out of what happened last week, but obviously there's speculation that more stuff like this will come. Dringo, when Microsoft have to talk again about what's coming next, like when they start promoting, do you see a complete change of strategy where they are just focusing on the immediate? Like, I can't imagine they're ever going to talk about games that are 2, 3, 4 years out ever again to stop this kind of egg on their face stuff happening.
It's worth noting that games like Fable, Everworld, and Perfect Dark, those announcements came at a time when the games industry was going through such a boom period. You had this scenario where new teams, like in the initiative, was being spun up, right? But there aren't actually enough senior people in the games industry for all these new teams and all these new companies. And a lot of the talent are going, you know what, I'm going to take that big VC money and launch my own studio. But finding talent was really hard. So in order to find talent, they all had to raise their prices, they all had to raise their salaries, and they all had to offer better, which is great for employees. But it also meant that if we're making a secret game, you need to tell me what that game is. So announcing Perfect Dark early, announcing Everworld early, announcing Fable early, they're kind of recruitment plays. They're like saying, these are the games we're working on. Do you want to work on Fable? That's an appealing thing. I'm going to go to Playground Games and work on the Fable. Do you want to work on Perfect Dark? That's an appealing thing. So they made this at a time when they were struggling to find people or struggling to encourage big staff, big senior people to come to their studios. These game announcements were designed to help with that. We're not in that situation anymore. There's no need to announce early. I actually think we need to do. What I find difficult about video games compared to films is in films you get a script, and once the script is written, then they start building it. Right? So the creative bit is the script. In games, you make the technology in the game at the same time, and it might not work out. Whereas you've got a script and it's approved, 9 times out of 10 that film's coming out because there's a process in which to do it. So that people have often said in the past, they should just announce the game as soon as it's greenlit. But actually, in games, that's not. You don't have to do a trailer. Just do a little thing. We're working on this game. Yeah. Here's our partners on it, and then the next time you see it, it's like 6 months from release, 9 months from release, and it's the first trailer, like it is.
Sorry, during your monologue there, I got a text that said, "Is Chris Dring on the booze again?" And it's just a picture of one of your videos with the subtitles, and it says, "Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show with me, Christopher Drink."
That's what we always say. We're going out on the old Chris Drink. You know what I'm saying? Going out on the old Chris.
Christopher Drink.
I don't think I've ever seen you out on the tiles, Chris. Maybe once, but
I don't drink a great deal. But whenever I'm with Andy,
I do,
it's almost like it just happens. Yeah.
I mean, you remember that fridge at SGF? It was top shelf energy drinks, bottom shelf Japanese beers, and that's how VGC runs.
They're on the prime sale at the moment, Prime Day.
Oh, really? Yeah. Are you some kind of ambassador for that 196 thing? Because I saw you were at like an event for it in London.
Oh, is it just completely? It's not. I say it's a coincidence. They're clearly launching it in the UK. Like you could never get Sochu or Chuhai in the UK unless it was like stupid import prices where you're like genuinely paying £5 a can, imported across. So they're clearly trying to launch it, which means, oh, look, it's on Amazon. I'll buy some of that. Oh, look, there's a big free bar on the South Bank like there was a couple of weeks ago. It's it's just happening.
They probably had a picture of you behind the bar saying, "Do not serve this man."
Do you know what? No, it's funny you say that. It was weird. It was like they're trying to launch it. So they had this free bar on the South Bank in London on the Thames, and it was a free bar. Like you go in, you get a drink, and you get a stamp. And then I had it, and I was like, oh, I want another one. So it's like, will you sell me one? No. And then like John Hicks, who we know, the ex-OXM editor, he was like, just rub it off, and I'll go back up. And I gave in the end and went to a normal pub and drunk a regular normal beer.
Boo.
It wasn't grapefruit flavoured.
Yeah, you can get them in Tesco near me now. So
can you?
Maybe that's how I get refreshed over the weekend. I just buy 10 cases of that and then rock up to work on Monday absolutely sick to my stomach. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to try and cool down somewhat, and when we come back, we've got chat about Nintendo, Ghost of Yoti, and your questions. We'll see you in a minute. Story number 3 in the never-ending saga of who the F is developing Donkey Kong Bonanza. We have found out that Kenta Motakura, the director of Super Mario Odyssey, is one of the game's producers, and the game is being directed by Kazuya Takahashi. Takahashi joined Nintendo in 2020, having previously worked on, quote, other open world titles. We don't know for certain, but the leading speculation is that he previously worked at Square Enix on Final Fantasy 15. Andy.
I am shocked. Shocked.
You are shocked to hear that it is not, in fact, the exact man and boy, man for man starting 11 that made Super Mario Odyssey that is making this game.
Absolutely shocked. Everyone who I've booked, everyone on my Twitter timeline who I've bookmarked will be getting a getting a message. Well, I'll have more. Obviously, I'll have more to say about this next week. But yeah, not surprising. You know, seems the rumors that they, you know, perhaps have spun off two teams are true. Especially Koizumi not being seemingly attached is a, you know, kind of big suggestion of that, you know, of course they're working on a Mario game as well. Like, of course they are. 100%. By the way, I'm going to have my own little corrections section, you know, like in a newspaper.
Andy's correction section.
Right. Because I looked this up the other day. For at least 6 months on this podcast, and I'm sure you were doing it as well, Chris. I'm sure we've even done it on your show. We've been saying that, well, of course, there's a Mario game coming soon because they've got the Mario movie coming out in April, but it's 2026, isn't it? It's not 20. It's like it's coming sooner than we think.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was speculating if they were going to drop a Mario game soon. I imagine it'll be around the Mario movie in 2026. Because the thing is, it's worth noting that they dropped Mario. This is pure. Look, the way we predict things is by looking back, right? And so then for the 9 months, when Switch 1 was 9 months. You know, between the launch of Switch 1 and Mario coming out was 9 months. 9 months from the launch of Switch 2 is actually when the Mario movie drops. So I'm sort of going, oh, maybe there's, you know, maybe if they're going to do a Mario movie, it'll be early 26 alongside the Mario movie. Maybe. I have no basis on this, just to be good time.
I can't see one coming out anytime soon now.
Nintendo too tend to drop. Well, they don't tend to. They occasionally drop a big game in the first first 4 months of the year. They've done Mario games in that period of time. So I just was a bit like, got a big Mario movie, maybe they drop a game. They don't need to though. But it's got to be relatively soon. It's a hero brand.
I do think it'll be interesting how they structure it, because I do think that, you know, all speculation, you know, I mean, you talk about this a lot and I talked about it a lot as well, like how the big success for the Switch launch was how they said, right, we're going to have every brand out in the first year, right? Like some sort of representation. Yeah. So I do really think Animal Crossing will be the big game. End of next year or the spring after. Like, it's really not far. I mean, obviously that came out 5 years ago.
2020.
Yeah.
As a pandemic.
So I really do think that's coming soon. So I do wonder where.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's Christmas.
Yeah. Would you release it? Would they release it at Christmas though? No, next Christmas. Would you release Animal Crossing at Christmas?
Dringo was talking about this Christmas, I think.
Oh, shut up.
Oh, shut up, you slag.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo has something else for this year. I mean, I would also not be surprised if they don't. But it's a weird year. It's a weird thing to go into the Christmas. I know they've got Pokemon and Metroid, which are big games.
Proper games.
Pokemon's a big game. But they are cross-platform games. Your first year of your new console, and you don't have like any big exclusive.
I think next year will be the big year. Look, if anything's going to get them through, I mean, obviously they've just broken, like they've had the biggest console launch ever. You know, they've got Mario Kart there and Donkey Kong for people to tide people through. They've got a new Pokemon game, you know, that's cross-gen. They got Metroid there as well, which I'm most excited about out of all of the stuff. They got a little Splatoon thing that they're filling out. You know, I think Zelda is winter, isn't it? The new
Air Riders.
Lots of losers. I think they can wait until next year before they come in with some more.
Yeah, they could do.
Absolutely.
Does it not feel like something's missing? Like something.
I feel that way right now about the Switch 2, but I think by the end of the year there will be enough shite on it.
But the thing is, I felt like something's been missing with Switch 2 since they announced it. But it's not made a difference, has it?
No, but I don't know.
It just feels like we're in a new Nintendo era, I think. I think objectively we are, because a lot of those original guys are, now in the midst of retiring, I think. Those original Famicom guys, this is the first console that, certainly Iwata or Yamauchi didn't have any involvement in. Obviously, they've wisely, or not wisely, depending on which side of the fence you're coming from, kind of done something a little bit more conservative, a little bit more iterative than perhaps they used to. But even I kind of see it in some of the games. Like, you're starting to see a trend now. And again, the lowest definition of a trend, like, the couple of games they've had out on Switch, kind of younger teams. And I see a lot of, like, obviously licensing has been a huge thing for them the last 10 years as well. Movies, the theme parks, like there was, particularly on Paper Mario was when it blew up in the core space, where they talked about what they could and couldn't do with characters, right? Because they had to standardize what these characters were so that you could go and give them to Levi's, or Uniqlo, and go stick them on a t-shirt. It's what you kind of have to do when you want to be this big juggernaut. I think we're going to see over this generation like a different feeling Nintendo. I mean, obviously they're expanding big time. They're opening new buildings and hiring lots of new staff, which requires training younger staff, especially if the older guys are going out.
Yeah,
and I think we're going to see a lot more tie-ins. Like, I think the game's going to be closer knit to the movies. I really do. I think in the past, what we've used them, like, they really don't care, about the story. Like, these things are toys. The story is a means to an end. I think we're going to see that change. I think they will spend more time on more effort and attention on narrative as well, and characters.
Well, it's worth remembering that Nintendo are making these movies, right?
Of course,
they're partnering with people that do it. Whereas beforehand, it was all licensing. They've always been relatively controlling of the licensing. I remember working on a branded Zelda magazine, and oh my goodness, you can't say that. You can't put the logo here, the screenshot. There was a lot of that. But I think what's worth noting is Nintendo's got a good culture, as in they've got a culture, and they don't have a high turnover of staff. So when we talk about the old guard leaving, the people coming in behind them are the people that have worked under them.
Those old guard, like in the West, they would have gone 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. You don't get high turnover of stuff, and that's really good. That's how you create a Disney, right? The people who made whatever Steamed Pope Willie, whatever, are not making.
I quite liked how the interviews that are doing the rounds this week with the Donkey Kong staff that they do. I mean, and this, by the way, is very clearly a planted line, because they've done a bunch of interviews and they've given the same answers, like, to all of them, like, to the point where I actually thought, was this a roundtable interview? I mean, it might have been, right? But I liked that they kind of made a point of saying, we went and asked Mr. Miyamoto, who made Donkey Kong, like, what do you think about, why is the character important and the direction we should go? And they can do that, right? Let's go and ask the guy who made Donkey Kong 44 years ago what he thinks.
And we do know that he was involved in those Rare games.
100%. Yeah. You speak, obviously, when I worked with those guys, they're like, they were always confident that they could get a game along because Mr. Miyamoto or Nintendo would drag it along. Like, the feedback on facts in those days was constant.
Yeah, I did enjoy, one thing I enjoyed about the interview, which I felt was very Nintendo, was when they explained about where the character of Pauline came along, because I think it was Rev at IGN was questioning whether or not it was inspired by Wreck-It Ralph. But when they told us actually the process of how they thought about Pauline and how it got into the game, I thought it was so bonkers. I thought to myself, only Nintendo. Like, it was like, we thought that maybe we should have someone hum the music. And I'm like, why was that? Why is that? Where's that in your design document?
I did wonder that, like, in which order the character came about. Because that's like, I mean, again, obviously I'll have more to talk about next week, when the game comes out. But it feels like quite a striking difference to me. That's what I kind of like, again, like in the realms of like talking about what I played in preview, that normally Nintendo, like this sort of game, like the rock character that they had at the start when we first saw the game, the Ruse, where the rock, which obviously later it turns into Pauline. 5-10 years, or even 5 years ago, that would have been the co-op character. That would have been it. Hey, it's Rock Dude. What's the name of the rock? It's called Lone Rock or something, like Odd Rock. That's it. That would have been the companion character, because they're like, yeah, we just need someone to just say the tutorial. Yeah, but it just I just found that quite striking. I don't know if I'm overreacting to it. That they're like, yeah, let's pull back this deep cut character, and then kind of like presumably like flesh out her character. Like they're talking about these interviews, like she's 13 and you're going to find out and blah blah. Like previously, Nintendo wouldn't give a crap. Certainly.
Well, that's the weird thing.
Who cares?
Do you remember, when they shoehorned in a Zelda storyline like 20 games in, and it was and my favourite thing was those people going, well, Pauline's 13. Of course, Pauline in Odyssey was was an adult. And what does it all mean? And I'm like, I don't care, because Nintendo can never sitting there.
I find that quite. I'm sad's the wrong word, but I like Nintendo games because they are toys. I don't really care about the story or anything.
I agree with I'm agreeing with you.
No, I know you're agreeing with me.
I don't care.
I don't really care about that stuff. Like I'm not the biggest like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom fan. Like I like those games. I enjoyed those games. But I don't really play Zelda for the story. Like, it's not.
But Breath of the Wild doesn't have much of a story at all. Like, it is.
For a game that doesn't have much of a story, it does seem to stop every 2 minutes to give me a self-indulgent cutscene that I don't care. I think that game's got more cutscenes than Death Stranding 2. Right? Like, I just don't. I don't care. Like, I don't. Like, I'm sure I've said this before. My die on this hill thing. Breath of the Wild will be better if it had no dialogue whatsoever. If it was Dark Souls or Elden Ring, it would be a better game. Like, the game's even set up for it, right? The world's a puzzle itself.
Yeah, but the joy of Breath of the Wild, and even Tears of the Kingdom to a degree, Tears of the Kingdom's a lot more story heavy.
That's probably what I'm thinking.
Breath of the Wild is that all of those cutscenes are like optional. Like, you have to go and find the cutscenes. The gameplay is like, here's a side mission where you can find the story, right? But, it's like, but you really don't need to do that. You can just go to these 4 places, unlock these people.
It just sort of seems to me that
you don't even have to do that. You go straight over to the boss and beat it.
A lot of the things with Nintendo, especially if you look like in hindsight, a lot of their big direction changes are like they're in plain sight, like the thing about Switch, when they, kind of did the hybrid console, the evidence was there for a long time. Like they combined their R&D departments and what things a Watter would say in interviews, and it was quite clear. And it does seem to me that they have kind of, this is the least, stunning observation of all time. But it does seem that they've kind of observed that the future for us is to kind of build these stories and IPs as opposed to, the games, the toys. That we need to make, like the Donkey Kong thing very clearly now is that we're going to make, Donkey Kong needs to be the character now, right? We need to make him a thing. Like we got the theme park. There's a movie. The movie's coming after Zelda, I've been told. Like Donkey Kong's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, but I think Rare made him a character already. Like, they built his.
What I mean. Like they need to for this generation. That was like when I was a kid, right? That they did that thing. It feels like they're going down the list now and going. We need to make we need to make stories of these characters. We need to be able to what does the Donkey Kong pair of jeans look like? What does the Donkey Kong movie look like?
Quite big. Yeah. This whole conversation feels like that episode of The Simpsons where the nerds are asking the Itchy and Scratchy voice actor if someone got fired for that blunder. It's like, none of this stuff matters with Nintendo. And honestly, I quite appreciate it. I quite like the fact that when people were asking them, why is she 14? You can practically feel the Nintendo people being like, because we wanted to make her that in this game. It just works for it. I'm quite looking forward to playing that. I wish it wasn't £1,000,000. I hope it's one of these things where Day of Argos is like, if you come down here, it's $46.99 for whatever reason. But really pushing the music stuff and the marketing, like from your preview experience, is there tons of songs? Like, is the music stuff always happening?
Are they pushing it in the marketing?
Yeah, every single advert I get for it on YouTube,
it's got music on it.
She's really focused as like the first face you see.
Oh, but that's the whole premise of the game is that Donkey Kong turns into these animal characters, and she turns him into them by her singing power. Yeah, that's the the premise of the game. So that's why you're seeing that basically.
Nice.
But to your point, I totally agree. Like I picked up on that line as well, where it's like, why is she 13? And it's like, that would have been the biggest wasted question of all time 10 years ago. Because it's like, they don't care why she's 13. Because someone decided in a lunch break, you know, or whatever. The marketing team phoned up, went, how old is she? You know, don't care. But I actually think it probably does matter now. I think things are changing or have changed. I think they now give that consideration.
Well, they would do, right? Because there'll be brand guidelines around Pauline. And in the last game, which only came out, 4 weeks ago, she's an adult.
I mean, even that in itself, right? The fact that it links to that game, you know, we're going to take the character from this game and put it in. It just feels like a new thing for them. I don't know if I'm, like, maybe the Nintendo fans in the comments or let us know, but I don't know if I'm digging too much into that. But that feels like a significant, pivot for Nintendo, that they're going to take this deep cut character and flesh it out and connect it to this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it was a new character, but the whole Rosalina and Galaxy and her tragic backstory and stuff like that, that was actually of all the Mario games, I think that had the biggest, certainly setup story.
If Mario gets a story, I'm out. No interest.
But that's great. That was all like kind of like side stuff, right? I like it. I thought it was very tastefully done. But this wasn't your point, but you mentioned Rosalina, but you look at the other characters, a perfect example is like Daisy in Mario Kart, right? Like a reoccurring character. No one knows who Daisy is or what she does or which war she survived to become a champion, kart racer. And no one cares. And Nintendo doesn't care. But it does feel like within in 10 years' time, we will know who Daisy is and what her backstory is and why she's there.
Maybe.
And the same with Waluigi.
I think back to GameCube, right? And you think with Professor Egad appearing and it was a character in Luigi's Mansion, and then Super Mario Sunshine, it turned out the paintbrush and the flood was made by the same character from Luigi's Mansion, and Luigi's Mansion had a whole thing, and then Sunshine was them going on holiday, and Luigi's Mansion was Luigi going to a mansion, right? And it was like, but those games all connected with each other, and they had backstories to them, and they had all. Oh no, but they're saying no more than they do now. That's what I mean. We're talking about it like we think this is going to happen. But I look at Donkey Kong; it's got a character that crosses over, and I'm like, yeah, but they've done that before. Zelda's got a lot more story in it. Zelda's always had quite a lot of story in it. Like I'm not sure I'm seeing what we're saying.
No, because Zelda, they'd make the game and then go, right, what's the story for this? What's fun in this game? Well, it'd be really good if you could have a sword that, you could hold the Wii remote up and it would charge up, and then, okay, well, how do we narratively, now that we've made that mechanic, how do we narratively?
I think that's true of Breath of the Wild. And do you not think that's true of Breath of the Wild?
Probably Breath of the Wild. I think Breath of the Wild would have been being made probably well over 10 years ago, right? Well over 10. I mean, when did it come out? Oh, yeah, really 10 years ago.
8 years ago.
Well over 10 years ago, that game would have been being made. So I do think it's a more recent thing. But I do think now they'd be like, right, if they're making a new Zelda now, well, the Zelda movie's coming out, and we really want to expand on this character. I don't know, maybe I'm chatting absolute bollocks. I just get a vibe, and from my experience of being a Nintendo fan, is that usually these vibes are they turn out to be right. Like there was a vibe 10 years ago that, well, I think they're doing something that's sort of like a handheld and a console thing. It just, they've been an IP business for Iwata started it, right? So for a decade, they're down that road. The stores, the theme parks, the movies. We've talked before on this podcast where you couldn't even buy a Pikmin anything, 20 years ago. And now it's ridiculous the amount of Pikmin stuff there is. Even the most niche of, the Pikmin is obviously not niche, but in Nintendo terms.
Yeah.
I just think that's a consideration now that you're getting these games that are coming out that would have been built from scratch within this world. I do think that's a consideration.
Yeah, maybe.
And then they have Nintendo Pictures, buying up these companies and stuff that are doing their.
Well, it's not. I think it's more to do with the fact this what we call attention economy, right? Where actually these games take 5 years. These games take 5 years to make now. People got so many other things to play. If you want to create a brand that's relevant in people's faces, you need to keep giving them stuff. And if those stuff you're giving them isn't possible to always be a game, then maybe it's film, maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's a theme park, maybe it's a museum, maybe it's an alarm clock, maybe it's you keep those IPs, those brands in people's faces. And that, I guess that is always going to be part of the consideration. I do think that Nintendo's been an IP business for far longer than just when under Iwata. I think it's been that, it's more of it. It's now obviously they've got a concerted effort. They're taking it on themselves now, whereas before they used to license it out a lot. But like it goes back to Pokemon really, which I know isn't their business, but that's been an IP business since day one, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at that and going, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Right. The way this podcast is going to conclude, for those listening, I'm going to give Chris one question, and then that will be your warning, because I want to talk about the new Astrobot stuff.
I was going to say, it's going past profitable.
The end of this podcast, we'll be talking about the new Astrobot levels, including the cameos. So this is your warning. Chris Dring is going to answer a question, and then we're talking about that. Okay, great. Chris Dring, we've got a question here from the VGC Maniacs who say, I enjoy the bi-weekly The Game Business. It's a great injection of trade news in the middle of the week. How's the schedule working for you in building an audience? Is the Tuesday-Thursday arrangement helping to build interest? You put up an interview with famous former Liverpool man, Peter Moore.
Was that question submitted by Jeff Keighley?
Did I submit that question?
Shockingly, as much as we take the absolute piss, there are people that are sincerely interested in stuff like this in the audience, so I want to give them their dues. Dringo, I will not take the piss out of the name of your outlet for the next couple of minutes. Answer the question.
So I'm constantly asking that question, actually. I did start dropping sort of bonus episodes, but I did find that that people were going, you're flooding my podcast feed a little bit, particularly from the business side of things. So I don't do that anymore. I don't do that as much anymore. But yeah, it does seem to be the feature episode, the news episodes do seem to work quite well. If I've got something to say, and I've always got in my back pocket that if I don't have anything worth saying, I'm probably not going to. I might in the future not do a Thursday show or something, but it's working quite nicely at the minute, particularly last couple of weeks, where you've got that sort of conversational thing, what's going on in the industry, what's the latest data, and then you've got here's me interviewing someone. That's the sort of journalism I do. Two types of journalism. I put it out twice a week, but it's working really well at the moment because we've just had a really good couple of weeks. That Sega interview did really well for me, and really huge numbers, and that when I some of the data stuff has done really well. So yeah, it's working quite well. I'm particularly now got a sort of template down. But it's interesting. The feedback I get from a lot of industry people is you're putting out too much stuff, and I don't think I am. but we've got a lot of stuff going out around Gamescom as well. So.
We've got Bam Margera coming on the Game Business, or
I'd love that.
He only does proper podcasts. Podcasts that send hundreds of emails trying to make that interview happen. We appreciate it, and you can check out the interview with Peter Moore on ChrisDringTalksAboutGames.com. Has he got any tattoos? Any new tattoos? Did he get a Game Business tattoo? What's going on? I
did ask him about the tattoos, and he just, I don't know. I think
he must be sick to death of that shite at this point. It's like
I almost didn't. You know, we didn't run it I didn't cut it out. Yeah. You know, it's like I don't even want. I'm asking this question because I feel people are obligated. And he does talk a lot. It's worth noting, Peter Moore. I just kept poking him on the same question. I need more. I want to know a bit deeper on this. I loved the when I spoke to him. I loved him. I love this I was obsessed with this wargaming thing they did, right? Where he pretended to be Ken Kutaragi in this. So basically all of these Microsoft execs got in a room and they all went, right, you're Iwata and you're Ken Kutaragi and you're this person. And the idea is Microsoft put out a strategy to beat them. And the other people have to play the roles. And Peter Moore played Ken Kutaragi, and Ken Kutaragi beat. So he beat Microsoft in their own game. Where they just try to counter strategy. And actually, I will say, I think Peter Moore was a really shrewd hire because he went from Reebok to Dreamcast. This is a story I did when I talked about E3. I had interviewed him the year before about E3. He went from Reebok to Dreamcast. He came in, he showed Dreamcast off in E3, and he thought, oh, look at our great games. Then Sony went on stage and showed games like The Bouncer, which were all pre-rendered videos that looked amazing. And he said, I sat there thinking, how are they making their games look that good? He was naive. He had no idea. And he used the word fudded. They basically made everyone think the Dreamcast was this inferior machine, and you should wait for the PS2. So when they tried to do the same thing with the PS3, for starters, the industry became a bit wise to that kind of behaviour. But Xbox were able to seed. Is that that Killzone trailer too real? They were able to prepare for that kind of activity. And also he knows what went wrong. He knows that they put out too many Dreamcast games too quickly. Like he's got it where he went wrong with that. And then he comes into Microsoft and he strategizes. But I asked him, I guess PlayStation didn't do what you expected them. And he went, well, nobody expected that price. And it was the famous 599. But yeah, it was a really good chat. I enjoyed talking to Peter. And I did the interview.
He's a good guy.
But yeah, he's fun. And he's writing a book. So I'm looking forward to getting that. Yeah, he's telling the story of how an immigrant that goes to end up working at goes from teacher to Reebok, and then he ends up in the games industry.
I hope it's better than Reggie's book.
Well, here's the thing.
But I really like Peter. But they're similar back, like they're salesmen at the end of the day, right? And Reggie's book is very much like, if Peter's book was like Reggie's book, it'd be like, yeah, so then went to Reebok, and then I did all this stuff that made them great, and absolutely no mistakes. I will say. Then I went to Xbox. I would argue stuff and made Peter, great.
Peter, I mean, I don't know. You're right. He does say warts and all in when I chatted to him. But what I was saying in the interview, he kept name dropping people who are actually responsible for the things that were successful. I talked about the success you have with third parties. Even though he was deeply involved in that success, he name drops like 3 people who were the leaders on that. So he did that quite a bit. But I don't know. It's interesting. He was telling me about, I don't even know if this is interesting or not. He was telling me about when he was looking for a publisher for his book. If he said, here's the story of how I made Liverpool win the title, or here's the story of...
He played up front.
Here's the story about my... here's the story about my time in video games or whatever. He would have found it easier getting a publisher than what he's doing, which is telling his whole story, which crosses 3 different worlds. So it's... Anyway, I'll definitely read that book.
Nice. Right. If you don't want to know about the new Astrobot levels, patreon.com/videogameschronicle. Thank you. See you later. Go and watch the BAM interview. There's 6 new Astrobot levels. Andy, how many of them have you played through?
I've done a lot, yeah.
Have you done the last one? The one in the middle?
Yeah, I messaged Nico this morning and told him that they're like almost through the controller at that bloody monkey level.
Was the monkey level the one that trips you up? The one that tripped me up, wait, the hands or the clapping?
Yeah, the hands, the monkey level where you're grabbing stuff, yeah. With a stupid wall that moves.
Yeah. What?
I didn't even have to say it to him, he brought it up. He went, the wall.
So there's 6 new levels, and finally cameos from Square Enix, which were completely missing from the original game, apart from Gex, weirdly enough. But there's Cloud, Sephiroth, Johnny Chrono Trigger, characters from Nier, and there is character from Ghost of Yoti and Ezio. Andy, I don't know about you, but I would take 10 to 15 of these every 2 months, every 3 months for the next 5 years.
I told Nick that, the creative director. I told him that, because he asked me, "What do you think we should do?" I mean, he's not. I don't know anything. I don't know what they're doing. He doesn't share. But I said to him, because I thought about this, what should they do? Because they're like, it's difficult for them, actually, I think, what comes next. I honestly think this is kind of like it, and I think they'd be happy with that as well. Like, how many platformers have won Game of the Year, like, across the board, like sweeping, right? Even Mario games don't really win Game of the Year, across the board, or many Game of the Years at all. So the fact that they've done that, I think you just kind of like have to do something different now. I think it'd be a mistake for them to deviate from what they're good at, which is they're a small team, right? They're very well run, very efficient team. And that's where a lot of their it kind of shines through in their games. They're a very imaginative, team. So I think it'd be a mistake for them to scale up and do something bigger. At the same time, a lot of the kind of like the joy and the magic associated with their games is that they come out alongside hardware, right? Because they're an R&D team, really. That's their background. They're an R&D team. They're across the street from the Sony headquarters, and they were telling me when I was there that they literally they'll have controller prototypes for PS5 and run them across the street. And they go, "What do you think of this?" And they'll give some feedback. And they go, "Why don't you change this?" And they'll run back and they'll bring another one like the next day. So that's why it's no surprise that they're able to get so much out of the hardware, because they're literally across the street and they're involved from the earliest times. So there's that as well. Like, should they Because, so you look at that and you go, well, really, we should be making something for PS6 now. The big thing for start of PS6, which probably they should be doing. If I was them, I would be doing a very quick sequel. And this is what I said to Nick, is that they're making their games basically how Nintendo have been making their games for a long time, certainly their Mario games, which is like they have hundreds and hundreds of post-it notes of ideas for mechanics, and then they iterate very quickly and they find the fun, right? That's how they make the Mario games. The Mario Galaxy, big hit, and then they made with all the leftover ideas. Famously, they made Galaxy 2 very, very quickly.
Are the leftover ideas not what they're doing now? These updates, these extra levels, are they not the leftover?
They have done like 20 of them at this point. Like they have put out a lot of free levels since.
But if they're not really like leftover ideas, though, they're more like. I mean, they were talking about this deal. I mean, it doesn't get highlighted a lot, but we put the story up, and then it didn't really blow up. But they were telling us what the DLC plan was when I visited them like last September. Like we're doing 10 challenge levels and 5 speedrun levels, and they had it on a PowerPoint. I've got it. It's on the website. It's on the video on youtube.com. So this was well planned. I think
they've now went past
I think they've maybe gone past that, but again, you don't know what, they told me or whatever. But it's kind of like more levels with the existing mechanics. What I mean is like, we had this idea for this suit, like a rabbit suit or this and that, and those sort of things. Like, Galaxy 2, they were like, we could do a full sequel, all these levels with these mechanics that we're going to put Yoshi in the game, and then we're going to do that. And I think they should do that. Put out a quick sequel, comes out, 2026.
Well, I think it's got to be a consideration, because the whole thing has been about how this might be people's first video game, and it's the big.
My kid's favorite game.
Yeah, well,
good taste
on my 5-year-old. But I don't know if is it should they do a multiplayer sort of play?
I think that would be a really good step to take it, because at this point I trust them to do whatever they want. Like I think that they will put everything they've turned their hand to is excellent in multiplayer. I assume you're meaning some kind of like. Are you meaning in the style of like a split fiction, like a Haze?
Yeah, local multiplayer, or a cooperative thing, or
it kind of seems like that's a very untapped big potential there, right? Like my kids love this game and they would love to be able to play together.
Yeah,
it just,
Sackboy Big
I guess
Adventure,
that kind of adds like
Mario.
Some complications in terms of like certain like the size of like making online games is not trivial, right? Like, I mean, when I was at Playtonic, we never kind of did anything online because it was like very clear. It's like, if we want to do online, then we need to go and get all of these people to do that.
It's what Nintendo did after Galaxy, though, right? You're talking about quick sequel. Maybe they could do a quick sequel and do it.
So I think they shouldn't complicate it, and they should just do a quick sequel. And then, the next logical step would be obviously, I agree, would be multiplayer co-op,
which they Mario Nintendo did with Mario 3D
World. Yeah, I love that game.
3D World. Yeah.
If they're going to do a quick sequel, they're going to really have to go into the doldrums of PlayStation cameos to get new people to put in, because we're at the logical conclusion now. Like, I can't really think of who else would start to get. You'd start to get like Kevin Butler, get like a Shuhei Yoshida Astrobot cameo.
Sony are a third-party publisher now, so just make a Switch version, put a load of
mate
Nintendo cameo.
This website would blow up if they put a Mario crossover into Astrobot. That game's magical. Every time I go back to it, I'm like, I know we gave it Game of the Year and we gave it 5 stars, but we underrated this game. Like, there's absolutely nothing like it. It's just absolutely,
it's so good.
It's perfect. Anyway, speaking of perfect, this podcast is now over. We're going to go and try and cool down somewhat. I have been absolutely pissing sweat for the last hour, so I'm going to go and stand in the cold. When I used to work at Morrison's and it would get hot, I would go and stand in the freezer, like in the I was going to say the backstage. What the hell do you call it? In the back of the Morrison's, and it was wonderful. However, they had to install a big red button because people kept locking themselves in the freezer and almost dying. So I never did that, sadly. I'd love to go in that freezer today. Thank you very much for watching. Patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle. Chris, where can we find you?
At thegamebusiness.com.
Nice. Any merch yet? Can I buy a t-shirt?
I should do. Would you want to really?
I would buy a Game Business t-shirt. So that's how you've got an audience.
Do you want it to be the Games Business and I cross out the S?
Yeah, please.
Sort of like that. Yeah.
I would honestly just buy a big t-shirt with your face on it that said Chris Drink on it. I'm on the Chris Drink.
So people, Chris Drin, I've had that quite a bit, but my favourite one is because people think I have this huge ego. My favourite one is when I briefly worked at my university helping students come through the door. They got the name wrong. They called me Christ Dring.
Oh yeah,
that was my favourite misspelling.
Andy, what are you doing this weekend?
Chris drinking.
Chris drinking, me too. Well, we hope you all Chris drink this weekend responsibly. Go and check out the BAM stuff. Until next time, say goodbye, Andy.
Bye.
Say goodbye, Chris drink.
See ya.
And we'll see you next week.